Welcome into the very first episode of the Max Brown Show. And before I get into the meat of this episode, the whole reason you guys are hanging out with me, I wanted to take a step back and provide some context because I know at some point, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, we will be glancing back at this episode saying, where did this all start from? And this right here is episode 1. Wanted to provide context to you guys of why now? Why am I doing this in February 2024, not 2 years ago, not 5 years ago? Why now? And I'll do a longer form episode on this exact subject, but high level, it comes down to a few things. One, after 5 years of being consistently inconsistent creating content, I finally found rhythm this past football season, which has been great. It's been fun hanging with you guys, and the response has been great as well. We've gained 15,000 subscribers on YouTube, and it got me thinking as I embark on the offseason to be like, yo, should we allocate more resources to winning on YouTube? We were doing it on the short form side, which YouTube Shorts played a role in that, but I've come to a point now where I think it's important for my business to invest in YouTube as a sports content creator, because I know for me, that's where I get my sports content. At lunch break, I'm looking at YouTube clips. I'm not necessarily turning on SportsCenter. And so from a business strategy move, I think it's important. Also, for those that have followed my career, know that I work with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is about to dissolve, or in the football context, it already has dissolved. And so this long form show is me trying to establish something of my own and continuing to grow that and not necessarily relying on a network to give me a platform, but let's build a platform together. And then 3, as a content creator, I think we're always pushing to get rhythms and cadences and whatnot. And I think the long form deliverable format will allow me to consistently stay on top of what's going on in the football world, consistently engage with you guys, give my thoughts on the hot button topics in football, and just get in a better rhythm putting together content rather than just one-off short form videos. The short form videos, we're going to keep up with those. Don't worry. But the long form structure allows me to, in my opinion, establish a better community. But with that, what's the format of this show going to be? Big picture, it's going to be 5 segments, 3 of which are going to be, I'll be looking at notes and whatnot, but for the most part, it's off the cuff. It's my reaction to, again, the big picture football topics in the world that's going on right now. The other 2 segments are going to be a bit more scripted, like you guys are used to seeing on my short form videos. We're not getting away from that. Those were working this past fall, so we'll continue there. For you long form listeners, we'll have an extended deliverable, whether you're running, working out, commuting. We'll compile all 5 segments into a long episode and clip them out. The content pillar model, making plays. If that strategy side is of interest to you, definitely let me know and drop a comment. But without further ado, let's get into the big topic of the week. Why is Jim Harbaugh back in the NFL? Comes down to one factor. He wants that Super Bowl. And why does he want that Super Bowl? He wants it because of legacy. And I see coaching legacy as kind of 2 paths. One, you can build up a program, stay at that program, build multiple championships, and really own a program or a conference or a certain time period in football. The other way to do it, and I thought this was the path that maybe Urban Meyer was heading down, and I think Jim Harbaugh is now leading the charge here, is prove that you can win at multiple levels, across multiple conferences, across different styles of players and quarterbacks and eras. That's the sign of an elite coach. That's how you build legacy, and it's what Jim Harbaugh is doing from the days in San Diego, after his playing days, San Diego, Stanford, San Fran. You go back to your alma mater and then now heading to the San Diego Chargers. He went back to Michigan and accomplished his goal. He brought back his university, not only to prominence, but to get the national championship. He restored the program and he got him a ring. And I respect the competitor in him wants to get on to the next thing. And Jim Harbaugh never had more leverage in terms of his ability to jump up to the NFL than he did now. I think it's the reason it took so long for the Chargers to announce him as their head coach. That process was what, 3.5 weeks? More like 3 true weeks. There was chatter a good 10 days before the national championship games. Full 3-week, 4-week ordeal. And that's what I'm very intrigued to see. Jim Harbaugh getting the Chargers job. That delay, from everything you read, was a byproduct of him wanting more support, him wanting more control, him wanting more investment from the top down in the systems and processes that he wanted to set up. Well, what exactly does that mean? Because it's not going to be stuff that's like super sexy. It's going to be more investment to nutrition. It's going to be more investment to the training staff. It's going to be more control over XYZ. Things that the average fan is not necessarily going to realize, but just by way of an example, if you invest more into the nutrition side of thing and you're able to allow a 315-pound right tackle to get 2 more productive years out of his career because he connected more with the Chargers nutrition staff. That's something that will never, ever, ever make a video like this. But that's something that could result into wins down the road if Harbaugh got the systems and processes that he wants. I don't even know if that's the factor he's eyeing, but I do think it's important that Jim Harbaugh used his leverage to get the job that he wanted, to get the missing Super Bowl that he's after. And outside of the quality of life that is not insignificant in terms of why Harbaugh is moving from college to NFL, why Harbaugh is going after the Chargers job and not some other franchise in the NFL because of quality life, because of living in LA, is because of who his signal caller is going to be, Justin Herbert. And Herbert's at an interesting time in his career too. He's at that crossroads. He's proven the naysayers wrong. A lot of negative chatter of him coming out of Oregon into the NFL. Was he soft? Was he quirky? Can he relate to guys? Can he be that leader? Can it result in wins? I think when you take a step back, we know it can result in wins. We see the talent. Can it result in championships? That's the next question. But there's no denying that Justin Herbert is an extremely talented quarterback. And from Jim Harbaugh's perspective, you now have one of the top quarterbacks in the National Football League. And when you have that, you have a chance to win. So many of these job openings in the NFL don't have that. And that's the first item of business. Who is going to be our signal caller? Who is going to be that dude running our franchise? We got to figure that out. Jim Harbaugh doesn't need to figure that out. He's got his dude in Justin Herbert. But with all that being said, an efficient, young rookie Justin Herbert over the past 2 years has become less efficient. And that to me is the critical factor, because when you look at Jim Harbaugh, the quarterbacks he's had are extremely efficient and have some of their highest producing years when Jim Harbaugh is their head coach. All that to say, this feels like an absolutely pivotal moment in Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh's career, but especially Justin Herbert, just given the stage of where his career's at. It will be funny though. I mean, you have one of the most intense coaches in the history of the game. I would almost say like an awkwardly chill guy. Like you can tell it's genuine, but you're also like, dude, I feel like you should have more juice, but you don't, which is totally respect. Like you got to do you. But just think about that for a sec. Jim Harbaugh's fire. Like the scene of like him shaking JJ McCarthy like pregame, or maybe that was like Rudock or Wilton Spate when he was at Michigan. Like imagine him doing that with Justin Herbert. I literally don't know how Justin Herbert would react to that. Either way, they're linked. But I do want to go through Jim Harbaugh's track record of quarterbacks that have played with him, because I think it goes underappreciated the fact that he's had success with quarterbacks of different skill sets, different stages of their careers, different ways of winning, yet he consistently has been able to get the best out of all those quarterbacks. First one, we got Rich Gannon, 2002, 2003 with the Oakland Raiders. This was right after Harbaugh got out of playing, if I'm not mistaken. Rich Gannon had his best career. Age 37 with Harbaugh, was the NFL MVP. You sleep on that. I sleep on that too. Personal bests in success rate, yards per game, adjusted net yards per attempt, and expected points per play. This was the first time that Harbaugh had coached quarterbacks specifically, and to put up NFL MVP numbers, that's as good as anyone could have expected. Moving to 2005, you had Josh Johnson at the University of San Diego. Only lost 4 games in his career at San Diego. 30-4 record. Finished with 11,563 yards of total offense. He's got records, but what's most important, at least from an evaluation standpoint, is Harbaugh recruited him, evaluated him, and developed him into that dude. It's not necessarily like he's just inheriting the talent like he is with Justin Herbert. He's able to develop and mold the quarterback like we saw this past year with JJ McCarthy, which we'll get into. 2011, Andrew Luck. Little quote for you, 13 years ago, but Andrew Luck said that Jim Harbaugh, he's a heck of a coach. He's a winner. I know I learned a bunch from him. I feel like I grew as a player, as a man, a lot under him. The whole Luck era is interesting because, and I'll make this comp on videos as we get into NFL combine season, Andrew Luck is the best quarterback prospect since Caleb Williams right now. Yet the difference is usually you think when you have a top quarterback prospect that we're going to ask him to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. We're going to ask him to win the game for us all the time. Jim Harbaugh doesn't do that with his quarterbacks, and there's no better example than Andrew Luck. Even though you had Andrew Luck on your team, the identity of Jim Harbaugh was still physicality and run the rock to then open up the pass game. Physicality and run the rock to protect our defense. Physicality and run the rock to establish a culture in terms of when games get tight, this is who we are. This is how we win games. Those types of factors are outside of the quarterback position. Sure, the quarterback plays a role in that, but I think oftentimes, and you see this at the college ranks, when you have this high-flying quarterback, Coaches feel the need to just give him the keys to the car all the time, but that doesn't always equate to winning. And when you don't win, a quarterback's legacy, a quarterback's comfort can diminish. That's the consistent part about all these quarterbacks, is they weren't asked to be Superman under Jim Harbaugh, because Harbaugh makes a conscious effort of knowing that doesn't win you championships, or at least it doesn't consistently win you games in his style. After that, he went to Alex Smith. And Alex Smith, I mean, he was getting from the number 1 overall NFL draft pick. People were thinking that his days were numbered, and Jim Harbaugh sparked a second wave in Alex Smith's career. The year before Harbaugh got there, Alex Smith was 6-10 on an underperforming team. The best season he had before Harbaugh was probably 2009. He went 5-5 as a starter, completed 60% of his passes, just 2,300 yards, which is kind of crazy nowadays with where the NFL is at. 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Very game manager-y-esque. When he got with Harbaugh, he led a 13-win team. Completion percentage increased. Threw for more than 3,000 yards. Upped his touchdowns to 17. Interceptions, just 5. So right away became more efficient, which gets back to that Justin Herbert point. Next, we got Colin Kaepernick. And this is another underrated factor for me. Hopefully, Jim Harbaugh never has to make a quarterback change, and Justin Herbert is his dude for the next decade. But there are 2 very notable quarterback changes that Jim Harbaugh chose to make tough decisions. This one right here, going away from Alex Smith, going to Colin Kaepernick, and ultimately getting to a Super Bowl. And then also recently with Michigan, choosing to go with J.J. McCarthy and sprinkle him in when you had an established starter in place. Those aren't easy decisions to make. From an outsider's perspective, they might be like, oh, this guy's better, just go with him. Oh, this guy's more exciting, he's more dynamic, go with him. But understanding the temperament of your locker room and the culture that you've built, Jim Harbaugh seems to have a great grasp on that. He traded up for Colin Kaepernick in the 2011 NFL draft to 36. That's always an awkward time to draft a quarterback, because it's like, all right, we're making a substantial investment in that quarterback, but he's not a top end of the first round type of quarterback. You can sometimes alienate your team of like, man, we could use that 36th pick to get an edge rusher or something like that. Why are we getting a quarterback that presumably is going to be a backup for a little bit? That's just a delicate spot to draft a quarterback. Obviously, it worked out for the Niners there in the short term. And don't sleep on this. Colin Kaepernick, they totally adjusted their offense. They utilized a lot of that shotgun, pistol, zone read, which at that time was pretty unheard of in the NFL. We see it a lot more with Lamar now, and yeah, Mike Vick had flavors of it back then, but Kaepernick was 101 at that point. And so many quarterback whisperers or offensive junkies usually have like their style of playing, not necessarily Jim Harbaugh. He's been able to win different ways. You had the Kaepernick way right now, and in this style of offense, the Stanford running out 4 different tight ends. That was different too. After Cap, you had Jake Rudock at Michigan. Harbaugh brought out the best of Rudock. It was an interesting time for Harbaugh, right? First year, goes and gets the grad transfer quarterback. Remember, Iowa went with C.J. Beathard, which then allowed Rudock to be available and go to Michigan. It felt like, recalling that season, there was like a ramp up period, and it felt like there was more meat on the bone for Rudock in that season if he had been in the program longer. But still, it was an efficient season for Rudock, the best of his career, if I'm not mistaken. And again, a totally different vibe. Colin Kaepernick, way different than Jake Rudock. You went Jake Rudock to a few years later, you had Cade McNamara. I'm skipping a few years. Their style of plays pretty similar. Cade McNamara has an Ohio State win under him. And so far, with Cade McNamara, a big-time recruit, his best play as a quarterback is under Jim Harbaugh. And then I referenced it earlier. You make that tough decision to start sprinkling in J.J. McCarthy. And by all accounts, that was a phenomenal decision, phenomenal timing, and ultimately got him a national championship. It is worth noting, Josh Johnson, Alex Smith, and Andrew Luck technically did receive more acclaim after Harbaugh, so it's not like it's everything he touches is gold per se. But I will say everything Harbaugh has touched at the quarterback position, I think that's the appropriate word. It has been effective. You haven't had major flops at the quarterback position, and you haven't had major flops offensively. I know they've had to level up. And I know Michigan's offense wasn't dynamic this past year, but that's what we're getting at. The offense has a style that is conducive to winning. Might not be the high-flying numbers, but it's conducive to winning. The big factor here, and I think this will be a huge adjustment for Justin Herbert, is the number of pass attempts he's going to have in a game or is going to go way down. Last year, Herbert was 8th in pass attempts per game. Year before that, he was 2nd in pass attempts. In 2021, he was also 2nd in pass attempts. Going back to Jim Harbaugh's days with the 49ers, 2011, his teams were 31st in the National Football League in pass attempts. Next year, 31st again, 2013, 32nd in 2014, 29th. That is a stark contrast of styles of play. If I'm Justin Herbert, though, that is music to my ears. I don't want to have to be Superman every single game because that's not championship football. That's not winning football. I want to scale it back. Of course, he wants to still put up stats and have success and be explosive, but I want to scale it back to protect my defense, to allow my team to have an identity where I can win in different ways. That right there, to go from top 10 in the NFL in passing to, I would say it's almost guaranteed next year he's going to be bottom half of the NFL, but he could even be bottom third or bottom fourth of the NFL. Long term, though, that's going to help Justin Herbert's career. And the other thing that I want to figure out is just how do these guys' personality mesh and mold? You look at Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they seem to have a great cadence there. You hear some of the stuff with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Big picture, they're cool. They won Super Bowls, but there was some friction at the end. It's been well documented. Lamar Jackson and the different coordinators that he's had and maybe hasn't had the foundation that a Patrick Mahomes has. Well, for Justin Herbert, by all accounts, it feels like him and Harbaugh are fire and ice. Harbaugh's fire, Herbert's a little bit more ice, a little bit more chill. How does that work? I'm confident it will work because Jim Harbaugh has the track record of making it work with different personalities, different eras, different schemes. But that's just going to be interesting. I also think Herbert's personality gets overblown, or at least it used to. Like, he's got some fire in him. There's clips of him hyping up his receivers at the combine. There's clips of him getting into it in games. He obviously runs the rock, not afraid to get hit, stick his head in there. Like, he can fire the guys up. But that's just an interesting factor to see how it plays out. At the end of the day, they're football dudes. They're going to get along. Jim Harbaugh said he was even a little starstruck when he talked with Herbert on the phone for the first time last week. But it'll be interesting to see Harbaugh in the NFL for legacy, for quality of life, and because he's got a quarterback and a chance to go get that Super Bowl, which when he started his coaching journey, there's two big factors: a natty at his alma mater and getting that Super Bowl. He got the natty. He almost got the Super Bowl with the Niners. He's going to have another shot here with the Chargers. What would I do if I hopped in the transfer portal today? I transferred from USC to Pitt at the end of 2016. In college football years, that's like 3 decades ago. Different rules, different coaches, different spots, different everything. Back then, my brother and I sat down one Sunday afternoon and ranked every single FBS team on a 3-tier bucket system. The patent for this is still pending. So I thought it'd be cool to go through how 2016 Max Brown would put schools into buckets if he was in the portal back in November of 2023. Bucket 3 was on paper, this school doesn't make sense. They either have a starter in place, they have a hotshot youngster, or back then, the factor was this is just a prestigious program, they don't take transfer quarterbacks. It's not really a thing now. There were 15 schools in this bucket back in 2016. In 2023, I got 21 schools. Running down the list, we got Arizona with Noah Fafita, Utah, Cam Rising, Mendoza at Cal, Stanford, Colorado's got Shadur, Bama, Tennessee, Ole Miss got Jackson Dart, Florida, Missouri, A&M, Iowa State, Kansas City, West Virginia, Kansas, Clemson. We got Vatech, SMU, Illinois, Iowa, and Northwestern. It's funny, looking at this list, every single school, the reason they're in this bucket is because they have a solidified starter. It's not some surface level reason of, oh, I don't want to go to this school because of it's in the middle of nowhere or anything like that. Maybe it's some wisdom in my old age. No Power 5 job is a bad job. Bucket number 2 was it's not a no-brainer, but it could make sense. I felt confident in my ability to compete with that quarterback room, but it wasn't a sure thing. Around 30 schools fell into this bucket when I transferred back in 2016. The 2023 version has 18 schools, 9 of which competition is the main concern. And it's not, oh, Max, you're scared to compete. No, it's not it at all. But if you're transferring with 1 year of eligibility left, you got to get it right. You can't go somewhere where you're going to be sitting on the bench. Insert one of you guys making a Ben DiNucci, Kenny Pickett Pitt joke for me. I'll wear that. Hey, maybe that's a video for a different time. We got UCLA, USC, Miller Moss. He's no scrub, but there's a reason USC went into the portal to get another quarterback to compete with him. Similar to Miller Moss, Alex Orji, he's no scrub at Michigan. We got Arizona State, South Carolina, LSU. I like Nussmeier, but it's not set in stone. Houston, Oklahoma State. Gundy seems to like that group. Texas Tech should maybe be in this next group, but they got Baron Morton. With the other 9 schools of this group of 18, the concern is, can you really win 7 games? When I was transferring as a quarterback, the 3 most important factors: go somewhere where you are wanted. Are they recruiting you hard? Go somewhere where they need you. They have a weak quarterback room. And 3, you got to go somewhere you can win, because at the end of the first 3 out of conference games of the season. If your team's 0-3 or 1-2, team's sputtering a little bit, they ain't firing the coach. He ain't going to fire himself. So they're going to be looking straight at the quarterback. Got to go somewhere you can win. These schools included Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Rutgers. And ironically enough, Pitt is here. And it's funny because the narrative when I was a recruit is transfer quarterbacks go there to find success. Nate Peterman had success before me, Tom Savage before that. But recently, transfer quarterbacks haven't worked out. You got Keaton Slovis making the jump from USC to Pitt. You got Phil Jerkovich, who was a big recruit, and then this Max Brown character. The fact that he wasn't able to make it work, that would give me pause. Finally, we got bucket number 1. On paper, this is a great transfer option. You like the school, you can win at the school, and they need a quarterback. I had 14 bucket 1 schools back in 2016. In the 2023 iteration, I got 22. Remember, this is me mapping it out as if it's November of 2023. So before a lot of the moves that we've been hearing about the past month or so happen. I don't think it's a mistake that almost all of these tier 1 schools already have secured their transfer portal quarterback. Let's run through the list. You got Ohio State. They picked up Kansas State's Will Howard. Wisconsin got Miami's Tyler Van Dyke. Washington picked up Will Rogers, and this one would have been close to home for me because I would have been going back home to Seattle. It's kind of what Jacob Eason did, Georgia to UW. Heading back home, that would have been dope. Maryland got NC State's MJ Morris. Michigan State picked up maybe one of the most low-key, under-the-radar quarterbacks that I like in Aiden Childs from Oregon State. You got Indiana, Duke, Syracuse, and Kyle McCord. TCU, BYU, UCF got KJ Jefferson. I almost put Nebraska in tier 2 because the question is, do you want to go to a situation where you have to compete with a hot-shot young freshman that the fan base is going to want to see play? I get the sense that Matt Rule is willing to play a more experienced guy and give Raiola time to ramp up. So that's why they're in tier 1, but Nebraska is an interesting one. You got Cincinnati, Baylor, North Carolina State, North Carolina. Oregon got 2 transfer quarterbacks. That's an ideal situation. That's a great roster. Bo Nix had success there. I can't blame either guy for going there. Miami and Cam Ward, that could be a difference maker. Minnesota, Louisville, Florida State, Auburn, Kentucky. Now, out of all the bucket 1 schools, where would I have ended up? I definitely think you got to do one of 2 things. You either got to lock up a spot right away quickly, especially for a guy in my scenario where I didn't have a bunch of tape. It wasn't like I was a Dylan Gabriel. I was a guy that was, he could have a high ceiling, but hasn't really done much yet. If a school's showing me love, I can't just sit around and wait around. I got to commit to them and let's go, which is kind of what I did with Pitt back in 2016. Or I would say let's wait until after the spring window when there's more clarity after spring ball of how the competitions are shaking out and then make your decision. But at the end of the day, with all this information, where would I have went to if it was 2023? This is going to be super random, but Louisville sticks out. I'd follow Jack Plummer's lead, a fellow Pac-12 quarterback that didn't find success on the West Coast, goes to the ACC, rises up a program, had success. He was also a pocket passer. I was a pocket passer. Maybe Louisville was the spot if I was able to travel back and be a 21-year-old or 22-year-old. The Ville. But don't get it twisted. I got all love for Pitt. Hail to Pitt, baby.
You're trying to tell me that in all of America, not one white man is fast and quick and athletic enough to play cornerback? Not one. For the last 2 years, we've been talking about this Cooper kid. We've been anticipating that he's going to get moved to safety because that's what you do with white corners.
Right. That's how you know it's the hardest position. They don't even let white guys try to play quarterback anymore.
In 2024, one of sports' last color barriers will come down at the hands of one man. Well, actually, color barrier isn't really true. Jason Sehorn started a few games in 2003, and there's a student named Kevin Casevarn who started a few games for the Bengals, and then Edelman played slot corner for the Patriots in 2011, but that's, I guess, a different position. I'm sorry, I'm ruining it. What if I told you white lightning only struck twice a decade? See, me again. Then we had Troy Apke do some nice stuff in 2018 for Washington. And then last year we had Riley Moss get drafted from the same exact school. It's just like Cooper's a baller, but why do we got to turn into this thing that it's not? I mean, I'm sorry. Again, just finish it. On April 25th, Cooper DeJean stars in The White Side. Come on, no, we're not doing that. Son of Sehorn. I mean, he's not a serial killer. The last of the honkies. Legitimately offensive. White men can't jump routes. How is that the best one? Nick Saban's announced he's leaving college football. Well, someone's got to replace his role. And I'm not talking head coach. We all know Kalen DeBoer is the new head man for the Tide. I'm talking about who's going to replace Saban as the CEO of college football. For the last 2 decades, Saban has unofficially guided the sport of college football. And yeah, you can make the argument that administrators and political figures or whatever have had a bigger impact than Saban. But at the end of the day, college football needs a figurehead, and Saban has been that. The sport lost its CEO. It's Logan Roy. For anyone who doesn't know, Logan Roy is the head man for a super wealthy family in the show Succession. He runs a giant media company, and the show's entire drama just hinges on the fact that, hey, when he retires, who's going to fill that power vacuum? You see what we're doing here? I want to go through the characters in college football and match them to the characters in the show the best I can. I want to get a better sense of the impact of the unofficial CEO stepping down from college football. And what better way to do it? First, we got Nan Pierce. That's Ryan Day. This is easy. Somebody on the total other side, doing their own thing, but building a legit competitor. Ohio State got super aggressive in the portal over the last month, with 3 top 25 rosters up for grabs. So much so that half of Ohio State's transfers in 2024 are coming from Tuscaloosa. You got Caleb Downs, arguably the best player in the portal ever. Julian Sand, number 2 quarterback in his class. And Seth McLaughlin, he started 25 games over the past 3 seasons. Waystar's loss is Pierce's gain, the same way that Alabama's loss is the Buckeyes' win. Greg Hirsch is Lane Kiffin. Another easy one. This is everyone's favorite character. Nobody takes him as the most serious guy in the room, but he keeps moving up. He keeps winning. And in the back of everyone's mind is the thought of, yo, what if Greg the Egg could really pull this thing off? Number 1 transfer portal class, and now they got a defense that's got a better shot of hanging in the trenches with Georgia and Alabama. You picked up Walter Nolan, Princely, still working on the last name, and linebacker Chris Paul Jr. Jerry Kelman is Steve Sarkisian. I low-key struggled with this one. I didn't know where to put Sark until I read this about Jerry. Doesn't use intimidation tactics. Instead, sits back and strikes when less folks are watching. No one has ever quietly built something in Austin, but there's just other big personalities than Sark on this list. But Sark is nowhere near the loud personality of some of the characters on this list. Lucas Madsen is Kirby Smart, the most obvious threat to the big man. The guy who's building his own behemoth for the younger generation. I mean, tell me that's not Kirby Smart. He's 48 years old to Saban's 72. On the surface, he's the best positioned to take the throne, start eating Alabama's lunch in the SEC, and potentially dominate the new 12-team playoff. Carl Mueller, Brian Dable. Sometimes you forget he's in this group. His focus is often not on the main point. People make jokes, but he has the capability to remind you he's still got power. I never counted out Carl. I'm not counting out Dable. Connor Roy, we got Adam Gase, the forgotten one, and I always forget he's part of the Saban coaching tree. But still, he's got a shot to be back-to-back Super Bowl winning OC. Roman Roy, we got Jimbo Fisher. He can get the better of Logan every once in a while. Snappy and sarcastic personality. This is Jimbo's era where he gets sent to work at the amusement park. But he'll be back. He'll make his play for the crown. Shiv Roy, Mario Cristobal. He's always put distance between him and Saban. Cristobal's never coached in the same conference as Saban. He does things his own way, but he's still respected. Cam Ward could unlock things for a roster that's had a top 12 talent composite each of the past 2 seasons. Kendall Roy, Dabo Sweeney. This is the reason I made the video. I can actually picture him screaming at the Alabama AD, trying to plead his case to be the next head coach.
I'm the eldest boy! I am the eldest boy!
All jokes aside, if Clemson can get some skill position talent to step up or transfer in, Clemson's still going to stay relevant. Tom Wambsgans, Dan Lanning. The final piece. Younger guy, unassuming at first, but spoiler, actually takes the throne. Doubled down at Oregon with a campaign that read, if you're worried about your coach leaving, then come to Eugene. Defense, he's got key returning players in Mateo Uyunglele and Jordan Birch. Transfer portal, needed to get better in the secondary and did. Picked up Jabbar Muhammad from Washington and Cam Alexander to fill the other corner spot. Brandon Johnson coming in from Duke as another corner, and Kobe Savage coming from Kansas State at safety. Offense returns some dudes now. At receiver, you got Tez Johnson, tight end Terrence Ferguson, and both offensive tackles come back. Also picked up some transfer portal additions. You got Evan Stewart, and then at quarterback, you not only got Dylan Gabriel, but you also picked up Dante Moore. What's my conclusion here? It's crazy to look at the impact Saban leaving will have throughout college football. What's your pick? Who will win? You know, in basketball, when the GOAT debate comes up, you always hear about like the other guys, right? There's always the conversation of, hey, it's Jordan, hey, it's LeBron, hey, it's Jordan, hey, it's LeBron. And then the dude out of left field's like, yo, don't sleep on Wilt. don't sleep on Bill Russell. And there's always like that one guy like pounding the table. That never really happens for football. And is that just recency bias that we always go Brady or Mahomes? Brady or Mahomes? Maybe there's a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. There's a little bit of Joe Montana, but not nearly to the level that the basketball GOAT debate has. And so I wanted to dive in. How far off are the other guys in the quarterback GOAT debate? How far off are they from Brady and Mahomes with the pace that Mahomes is on in terms of Super Bowl rings, MVPs, that sort of nature, and where Tom Brady ultimately finished at? Because Tom Brady's the GOAT, but Patrick Mahomes has another Super Bowl here that could change the conversation about how we talk about the trajectory ahead when we look at the quarterback GOAT debate. So I know for me, when Tom Brady retired, I was like, all right, yeah, there's no chance any quarterback's ever going to chase his ring count. But when you look at Mahomes' stats through 6 years, it's close. In fact, it's almost identical, or it's very comparable, I should say, Mahomes versus Brady through 6 seasons as being a starter. 72 and 22 for Mahomes versus 70 and 24, nearly identical. Playoff record, very comparable. AFC titles, Mahomes is one up, but Super Bowl rings, Tom Brady has one on Mahomes. Brady is 3 for 3, Mahomes just 2 for 4. And like that's the classic like Jordan LeBron thing, right? Jordan cashed in on all of his NBA finals chances versus LeBron didn't. And for some crazy reason, check it, I'm a LeBron guy. But the legacy, you just don't get credit for finals appearances, or in this case, Super Bowl appearances. When you get there, you gotta cash in. That's what Brady did. And we're filming this before the Super Bowl right now for Mahomes. But Mahomes needs to do the same thing against San Fran for a second time. Stats-wise, Mahomes is way better. Not even close. And QB rating reflects that as well. Brady played for 23 seasons total, 21 as a starter. He had the backup year as a rookie, and then he had the injury season with the ACL. If Patrick Mahomes has the longevity that Brady has, which is a big if, knock on wood, knock on wood, hopefully he stays healthy, he would play for another 15 seasons. I even accounted for, let's say, 1 season he has an injury. Sorry, I don't want to say bad blood, but let's just be, we're trying to be real. We're trying to be real in this episode. If he has 15 more NFL seasons, if he wins this Super Bowl versus San Fran, that would mean he would need a ring every 5 years to catch Tom Brady. If he doesn't win a Super Bowl against the Niners here coming up, he would need a ring every 3.5 years. When you say it like that, that doesn't sound that crazy. Every 5 years, the run the Chiefs are on, that doesn't sound crazy. What will ultimately be the deciding factor in that is how do his teams evolve? Tom Brady started with elite defense, just be solid on offense. And then it grew to, we got Randy Moss, we got Wes Welker, we got Rob Gronkowski, we got Aaron Hernandez. We're putting up stats, we're making moves. That's a big swing. For Patrick Mahomes, it started with, let me grow into the position, utilize Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and the playmakers that he had. I didn't fully appreciate how good Tyreek Hill was when he was on the Chiefs. I kind of thought it was more Andy Reid's scheme than Tyreek being a beast, but Tyreek's a stud. And now it's evolved where the Chiefs have a legit defense, and it's Mahomes just do enough on offense to get us through. One thing I know for sure, if we're talking 15 more years, Travis Kelce, he is not going to be here. Travis Kelce is going to be traveling the world, being Taylor Swift's husband. Yeah, I'm a believer. They're going to be, they're going to get married. I'm all about it. I made a LeBron reference right there. We got the T Swift reference right there. If you know, you know. But my point is, how does the Chiefs roster evolve as Travis Kelce continues to age? And there's always on the other side, Andy Reid. Andy Reid are going to retire. Does Andy Reid have 15 more years in him? Probably not. Does he have 5 more years in him? Does he have 3 more years in him? Is Andy Reid just a football nut and he's like, yo, I hit the absolute jackpot getting Patrick Mahomes. We are riding this thing out. We were riding it out until I'm on my deathbed. I don't wish that upon anyone. But we talked about it earlier, Jim Harbaugh and legacy and whatnot. Andy Reid, there's a lot of meat left on the bone from a legacy perspective for him too. But those are just factors when you look ahead that long, 10, 15 years, that are going to impact Mahomes' trajectory. But back to the original point of this segment, what is the gap between Mahomes and Brady and where the other quarterbacks are at in this argument? Are we forgetting anyone? Who else is in this conversation? I'm going to run down a few guys. First one, Joe Montana. He's like that first guy that you always think about through his first 6 years, and this is starting with the season that they started the majority of the games. He was 55-24, not as good there. Playoff record is good. 3 conference title game appearances, 2 wins, and again, cashing in on the Super Bowl wins. 2 for 2 there. Roger Staubach. This was actually interesting. Check out this career arc. He went to 3 conference championships in his first 3 seasons as the starter and won a Super Bowl in that very first year. Ended up being 6 for 9 in terms of conference championships as a starter, but didn't get his second Super Bowl ring until he was 35. 35 back then is a lot different than 35 nowadays. What if Roger Staubach didn't serve in Vietnam? What if Roger Staubach was part of a different era? The man didn't start his first full season for the Cowboys until he was 31. He won back-to-back MVPs at 36 and 37. I'm gonna be honest, I was unaware of all of that. Talk about a what if in the GOAT debate. Roger Staubach, I see you. I don't know why I just had a little accent there. Roger. Another one, Ben Roethlisberger. I forgot how quickly he got going in his career. Through his first 6 years, 60-26 record, a great 8-2 playoff record, 2 conference title wins, and again, cashing in when you make it to the Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowl rings. Terry Bradshaw, another Steelers quarterback. Not really a great record through his first 6 years. I mean, relatively speaking, 45-20. 4 conference title game appearances, 2 conference wins. And what's the theme of this? You cash in when you make it there. 2 Super Bowl wins as well. He made it to 6 conference championships. Terry Bradshaw made it to 6 conference championships in his first 9 years and won all 4 of his rings in that time span. You got Aaron Rodgers and John Elway. Their conference titles were spread out much longer than that 6-year time frame, so they're not really relatable in this conversation. Steve Young's an interesting one. I actually forgot about Steve Young's arc. I totally forgot that he started his first year. The majority of the games that he started in year 1 in the NFL for him was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that one's weird. But if you do want to start the clock from when he was a starter for the Niners, it is a ridiculous pace. From age 31 to 38, played in 7 conference championship games. At the end of the day, through a 6-year span, this initial 6-year span where Brady and Mahomes are at, there's a significant gap to the next crop of guys. The difference, as you're piecing it together, was Brady separated himself over time. It wasn't just one stretch. It wasn't just one dominant stretch of 6 to 8 years. This dude made 14 conference championships over the course of his career. The dudes that are closest to him, we got Steve Young, Roger Staubach, Joe Montana, each had 7 conference championships. So Tom Brady is double the next dude. Tom Brady had 333 regular season starts. That's 18 more than the next guy in NFL history. Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowl rings that are more than any other franchise. This is the best one right here. No other quarterback played in a Super Bowl after the age of 40, and Tom Brady played in 3. They say availability is the best ability, and when you're Tom Brady and you're hanging around this long and giving yourself this many at-bats, that's how you cash in with 7 rings. And Pat Mahomes is on a similar pace. Bang! There we have it. That wraps up the first episode of the Max Brown Show. I'm excited to see where this goes. Excited for you guys to hang out and follow along. And let me know your feedback in the comments. What do you think about the structure? And let me know any topics you want me to dive into. You guys know the deal. I go wherever in the football world. If there's something that's top of mind for you, let me know down below in the comments. And I'd be willing to bet if you made it this far in the episode, you at least like something. You at least like one of the segments. If you want to support the show, support my channel, throw that subscribe button, hit that thing down below and let me know. And if you're not and you're like, dude, why is this Joe Burrow lookalike on my screen? I don't know who this guy is. It's all good. We'll be back next week. We'll earn that subscription. Either way, this was fun. See you next week.